Hi, and welcome back to Kids Get Money. Today we are talking about the biggest mistake that parents and carers make when it comes to teaching kids about money. We are going to look at why we make this mistake. We're going to talk about how this impacts our kids, and probably most importantly, once we know, what do we need to do instead? All right, so without further ado, the biggest mistake parents and carers make with money, in my opinion, is doing the ostrich. We're burying our heads in the sand when it comes to our own finances. You might be thinking, what has this got to do with my kids? Well, it's really a mistake for anybody to bury their head in the sand when it comes to their finances. But when it comes to having kids in our lives, there is no doubt that this mistake is compounded. Let's break it down. First of all, why do we do this? Why do we actually bury our heads in the sand when it comes to money? It's not like we think that it's going to end well. It's not like we think that this is a really good strategy. There is a word for it, and that word is procrastination. Let's look at what Wikipedia tells us procrastination is. So it is the act of unnecessarily delaying or postponing something, despite knowing there could be negative consequences for doing so. At its most simple, we procrastinate because our brain is prioritizing immediate emotional relief. In other words, that's pain avoidance over long-term rewards. And when it comes to money, especially in a world when it's getting harder and harder for people to keep their heads above water to stay afloat, it's no surprise that we choose procrastination. Now, that procrastination takes a lot of different forms. It could be shopping. It could be using credit cards. It could be booking holidays we can't afford. There are so many ways that avoidance of emotional pain from struggling with money shows up, that procrastination. So when you're on your own and nobody's relying on you, at least your actions are only impacting you. You know, you get to the end of the month, payday is coming up, you don't have any money, you're having to really restrict how much you're eating bad food, maybe you're even into the noodles. Listen, I love a good session with noodles, but, probably not the most healthy. But it's just you that is kind of experiencing the impact of your avoidance or your procrastination. When you've got kids, though, you know as a parent that these avoidance or procrastination habits, the things that we're indulging in, are actually really difficult. It's really difficult when you get to the end of the month, you don't have enough money. Maybe you're standing in the supermarket like I was at one point. If you don't know much about my story, go back and have a little look at some of my origin videos on the channel. But yeah, I've had moments where I've been standing in a supermarket with $20 to feed a family of 5 for 3 or 4 days. And that is not easy. It's not easy for a parent to be in that situation. So not only that, but you're also trying to control not just your own impulses, but everybody else's as well. I don't know about you, but those constant demands from kids, I want this, I need that, there is this thing happening, I want to go to this thing. It doesn't seem to matter what age our kids are. All of these demands are constantly bombarding us. So that is where things do start to get really, really tricky. Now, when you're in this situation where you are doing the ostrich, your head is buried in the sand, our kids are so intuitive, and there is this really well-known school of thought around psychology that says that our money mindset about really key things, and money is included in that mindset is actually established in us between the ages of 0 and 7. That was actually quite shocking to me when I first learned that our kids are soaking everything up, and whether we're saying something or not, they are feeling it. They feel the emotions, they're tuned into the way that you're behaving. And that is really, really tricky when it comes to kids. And that's why it is the biggest mistake. The biggest mistake is avoiding your own finances and doing the ostrich, because your kids are soaking up the atmosphere of money in your lives. Okay. So the other thing that's happening is that your fear, your embarrassment, and of course shame It feels like money is just always so loaded with shame. Those things are stopping you from being able to teach your kids about money in a way that would be really, really effective. Okay, so it's your money mindset that is at stake here, but also your kids. Right now, you are in a position where you're actually setting your kids up to have a mindset that may not be what you want them to have. It's maybe not the gift that you really wanted to give them. So the question is, what can we do about it? Before we get into ideas, I did want to say that if you're really struggling with money, trying to make ends meet, you might need the services of a financial counsellor. Now, here in Australia, we are really lucky to have the National Debt Helpline. You can call them on 1800 007 007. That number will be on your screen. Now, look, they have financial counsellors who can really help you move forward. And if you're in another country that's not Australia, I'm sure that there are similar kinds of services. So please, if you're in this place and you are really, really struggling, this video may or may not be for you. Okay, you might need the help of a financial counsellor. So please go and get that help if you need it. If you are still in a space where you think that you can make some progress on this on your own, I would say that the first step is a session on your own money mindset. Now, this needs 30 to 60 minutes, a quiet spot, a cup of tea or coffee, pen, piece of paper. That's all you need. So what you want to do is you want to really, in that quiet time, think about how have you arrived at this place with money? How do you talk about money? How do you behave with money? Looking back over your life, even your own childhood, is there anything that you can pinpoint that might be driving this? And it might surprise you, but when I've been doing coaching with women, it just surprises me sometimes how often we might think something is a stereotype, but actually it has really taken root and has been driving the way that we behave with money, because that's our money mindset that was established in us when we were very young. So it's not about blame. It's actually about figuring out what's going on so that we can move forwards. Okay. So make some notes about that. Really think about that. Be as honest as you can with yourself. Next up is to work out where you want to go. Okay, so how do you want it to be instead? How do you want money to feel in your family? For me, I guess I wanted money to feel like it was a shared problem, like it was something that we were working on together. When we were kind of going through our real struggles with money, I felt like I had to carry it all, and it was so stressful. It was so miserable. Everybody knew it. Everybody could feel it. We talk about it now that our kids are older, and they're like, Mum, we all knew what was going on, but, it was worse because you wouldn't share anything with us. And so, I think it's about trying to figure out how you really want money to feel in your family. This is the groundwork for change, okay? Finally, we've got to work out what are the age-appropriate ways that we can actually start to talk to our family, our kids, about money, okay? When it's hidden, when it's a mood, when it's people snapping, when it's people getting bad rest, that's not healthy. Okay, it's not healthy for you. It's not healthy for the family and your kids. So one of the ways that I often see people taking up this advice is to have a weekly family money meeting. All right. Attendance should not be optional. This should be something that everybody turns up to the table once a week. Could be on a Sunday. Maybe it's late afternoon just before you all have Sunday dinner together. Okay. Book that family meeting to start the process. Staying age appropriate is definitely important, but naming some of the things happening with money for your family is really important. Okay. At all ages, we need to keep it simple. We don't want kids to be panicking, worrying, being stressed about things, but we do want them to be realistic. We want to be open. That's going to need a little bit of vulnerability from you. As I said, age appropriate is important. Okay, so let's talk about kids in that 6 to 9 age bracket, because I think this is where it can be quite tricky. I would say, in terms of keeping it simple, an example of that could be, you might have noticed that I've been a bit cranky about things to do with money lately. Okay, that gives them an opportunity to tell you what they've been observing, what they've been feeling. you can apologize. You can say, I'm really sorry about that. I'm so sorry. I have been a little bit worried. And what I wanted to do was to sit down today and just to explain to you what's happening. Okay. You could say to them that, right now we don't have as much money as we might have had in the past to spend on things that we want. Okay. That could be because of XYZ driver. Maybe you're having to cut your hours. Maybe work is cutting your hours. Maybe you've been out on sick leave and you're not getting paid. There could be all sorts of reasons why your income has gone down. Or maybe it's that bills are getting bigger. So talking to kids about things like the cost of living when it comes to utility bills. So for example, explaining to them that electricity bills and water bills have been getting bigger, and that's making it a little bit harder to stretch your money further. The conversation could then link in some age-appropriate key concepts, and those are things like needs and wants. Those are things like instant and delayed gratification. Okay, so these are age-appropriate at any age. If you've never spoken to your kids about this, explaining to them that right now we have to spend more of our money on the things that we need. Okay, things that we need are what? X, Y, Z, A, B, C. Commonly, we call these in the money business our four walls. It's the roof over our head. It's the food that we eat. It's the electricity. It's the water. What are all those things that we have to focus on because we really need them to survive? And then we can talk to the kids about wants, okay? I'm sure that they have their own list of things that they want, but they can understand that they aren't the highest priority right now, okay? And when it comes to instant and delayed gratification, look, this is something that we all need practice with. No matter what age we are when it comes to money, being able to help kids to understand instant versus delayed gratification and explaining to them that right now we are going to have to wait for some of those things that we really enjoy. But there is a reward in that, and we are actually building up some really important life skills for our kids when we're doing that. So you could also think about having a brainstorming session. So what are the ways that we could help the family to make our money go further right now? That's things like reducing package branded snacks, making homemade takeaway, so having a family pizza night where we buy the ingredients, having the kids help you with a budget at the supermarket. Now, I can appreciate that when you're really stressed, these all seem like really small things. Sometimes it can feel like a tiny drop in the ocean. But remember, this channel is about teaching our kids about money. This is about kids get money, okay? So what I'm trying to help you with is to say, okay, kids can't help us with those really big things that we need to be doing as grown-ups. But what we can do is we can remember that these are our kids and we need to start to equip them with the skills they need to navigate the world of money, okay? So back to the ideas, making homemade takeaway, making birthday cards, bringing our lunch to school every day, maybe just having a small treat from the school canteen instead of having a whole lunch. What about buying less expensive gifts for birthday parties? I remember when my kids were in that age group, that 6 to 9, I felt like if we got invited to one more party, I was going to scream. We have 3 kids and it seemed to be relentless. There seemed to be pressure to buy expensive gifts for kids. What ways could kids help you to make that money go further? And I have actually found that kids are really good at this. Okay. So, there are lots of ways that we can talk to our kids about money and start to build in some key concepts for them. All right, let's do a quick recap. Where did we start this? So what is the biggest mistake parents are making when it comes to teaching their kids about money? Well, it's actually burying your head in the sand and playing the ostrich in your own finances. Why are we making this mistake? Because it's human nature. Our brains have evolved to protect us from pain, right? So we procrastinate, we avoid pain, and we start doing the things that make our life feel better. Okay, that's uncontrolled spending. It's instant gratification. All right. How is this impacting our kids? Well, our kids are soaking up that atmosphere. They're seeing what we're saying. They're seeing our face when we're opening the mail. They're understanding that things are not as good as they perhaps have been in the past. All right. They are emotional sponges. What to do instead? What we need to do is we need to rip off that Band-Aid and start to really think about that money mindset for ourselves. let's start to map out a path to move forward in a way that's more positive, and take that and bring that openness into our family, into our kids, and start finding age appropriate ways to have that conversation. All right. I hope that's helped. Please keep coming back. This is the start of a fresh new look for our channel. And we are going to be dropping back in every week with videos to help parents, carers, even teachers to work out how to talk to kids about money. See you soon.